What's going on, Bengals fans? Chris Daughtry back with you guys here on Bengals Breakdown. And the top 10 of the NFL draft order is set after the Bengals ended up losing to the Browns this afternoon. And unfortunately, the Chiefs also ended up going down to the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders locked up the number 1 overall pick in this year's NFL draft earlier in the day before they even played. So they had a little bit to play for today, and it seems like the Chiefs even know how to tank a little bit better than the Cincinnati Bengals as they lock up now. It is official, the number 10 overall pick. Make sure you guys are subscribed right here to Bengals Breakdown. We will have draft coverage for you guys as it gets closer to the NFL draft. We'll also have coverage around the NFL Combine as well. And coming up on today's show, we'll talk about who the Bengals, could end up picking here in this year's NFL Draft at that number 10 spot. All right, so this is the official top 10 of this year's NFL Draft. Raiders right there at number 1, Jets at number 2, Cardinals at number 3. There was a little bit of a back and forth there in the 4 o'clock window for the number 2, number 3 spot. The Giants fall all the way down there at 5. The Titans at number 4. Browns at number 6. They were a little bit higher earlier in the day. Then they dropped a little bit. Then they went back up a little bit with the Commanders taking down the Eagles as well. Saints at number 8, Chiefs at number 9, and Bengals right there at 6 and 11 are at number 10. A couple of possible positions of need here for this Bengals team as they look to add some more players to this team through the NFL draft. I think safety, to me, is the number 1 priority spot for this Bengals team. Now, I do think it also has to do with what the Bengals do in the offseason as well, what their plan is going to be for guys like Joseph Ossai, guys like Geno Stone. That could, change things a little bit as well. Edge rusher could also be up there as well, depending on what you do with Joseph Ossai. Defensive tackle is another position that has been thrown out there. Zach Taylor has talked about they want to get a little bit bigger and more athletic along that defensive line, help them stop the run a little bit. Cornerback is going to be an interesting spot to me, I think, just because of what they're going to end up doing with Cam Taylor-Britt. I kind of think he's gone after the season. I think the Bengals are going to end up letting him walk. Now, do they end up bringing, Jalen Davis back for next year? He is technically a free agent after the season, so are they going to be able to re-sign him to a cheaper deal? Or, is another team out there going to be able to kind of poach him for you, when Cam Taylor-Britt went down with that injury? I personally think what they did there in the secondary, putting Jalen Davis at the nickel spot, moving Dax Hill to the outside corner spot. I think they played a whole lot better when that move ended up going down. And, offensive guard in particular, I think is going to be a real interesting spot for the Bengals this year. Now, they did end up drafting Jalen Rivers last year as well. So what are they going to do with Dalton Risner? I think they need to re-sign Dalton Risner if they can to, an extra year at least. And even if they do that, still wouldn't put it past the Bengals picking a guard kind of later on in the draft. But we're going to talk about what they could possibly do here in round number 1 at that number 10 spot. So I want to hear from you guys down at the pinned comment of today's show. What is the top position of need for the Bengals in the draft? Let me know what you guys think. For me personally, it's safety. I think Geno Stone and Jordan Battle had really, really bad seasons this year, and I think just addressing that spot, particularly with Geno Stone, he's going to be a free agent. I kind of think the Bengals should probably let him walk, but let me know what the top position in need that you think is for the Cincinnati Bengals during the NFL draft. All right, so like I said, I think it's safety, and we've talked a ton about Caleb Downs, but, there are some other guys out there as well. What happens if Caleb Downs ends up getting picked in the top 9? If that ends up happening, I don't think the Bengals go safety in round number 1. But some other guys out there as well. Kamari Ramsey had a really good year for USC as well. Dillon Thieneman, still in the college football playoffs as of right now. The Oregon Ducks are in the semifinals right now. AJ Haulcy, playing in the SEC. LSU didn't necessarily have a good year, but AJ Haulcy did have a good year for them. And you have Rod Moore as well out of Michigan. Now, he was injured this year, and, over the past 2 years, I believe, has, really been dealing with some injuries there for the Michigan Wolverines. Now, I've also seen some chatter. There's a possibility that maybe he ends up going back to Michigan. I don't really know what the situation's going on right there, but I would probably caution Rod Moore. I think he's a really good player, but the injuries really do concern me right now, and I'll continue to say it, man. If Caleb Downs is there, you have to take this guy. He is, in my opinion, the best option for the Bengals. I get it. You could help yourself out at the edge rusher spot. You could help yourself out, along the defensive line. But, somebody even said in our live show today as well, I just want the Bengals to pick the best player available. If Caleb Downs is on the board, he is the best player available. And, unfortunately, the NFL and the Bengals as well, they don't normally value safety early in first rounds. And I just got to say, man, if Caleb Downs is there, if he is still on the board, I think it would be a massive mistake for the Bengals to not pick him. I think he could be the quarterback of this defense, and, he can help you in the run game. He can help you in the pass game as well, and he can just kind of get everybody, playing together as a unit there, at least in the secondary, and I think it can help those linebackers as well. This is a very, very smart player, a very gifted player. I definitely think he could help this Bengals team. If he is on the board, I'll continue to say it. I think the Bengals need to pick him. All right, we'll continue with some more targets here in just a second in different situations that the Bengals might find themselves in this offseason. But first, we want to give a shout out to the sponsor of today's show. It's Prize Picks. Whether you're starting a new routine or making player picks for the first time, trying something new can be hard. But in life and on Prize Picks, it always feels good to be right. With high-pressure playoff matchups every single weekend and elite hoops action almost every single night, the action never stops, and Prize Picks lets you take control. We got a new feature alert, by the way, on Prize Picks. They now offer early payouts. If your player gets off to a hot start, you now have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. We have a Sunday night matchup, Sunday night Prize Picks that we're going to go with here tonight. This is to get into the playoffs this year. This is to win the AFC North. We're going to go with less than on Aaron Rodgers passing yards, less than on Derrick Henry rushing yards, and we're going to go with the more than on Jaylen Warren rush yards as well. One of my favorite features, by the way, about Prize Picks is, how you play is up to you. If you want flexibility, choose the flex play, where you get paid even if one of your picks misses. But if you want the biggest payouts, go with the power play, because no matter how you play, Prize Picks is a great way to put your takes to the test. So download the Prize Picks app and use promo code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's promo code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That link, by the way, going to be down in the comment section and the description of today's show. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Now, I want to go through a couple what-ifs here as well. If Caleb Downs is off the board, and if the Bengals do end up re-signing Geno Stone, which I do think would be a mistake there, and I think a lot of you think the same exact thing as well, I think the Bengals would end up either going edge rusher or defensive line, and we're going to stick on the defensive line first. We'll talk about edge rusher here in just a little bit. Now, Ruben Bain has been going absolutely insane in the college football playoffs. He went crazy in the game against Ohio State. I think he had 3 sacks in the game against Texas A&M as well. Now, there have been a little bit of concerns about Ruben Bain and his arm length and everything like that. There's been some conversation about moving him inside to the interior of the defensive line. If Caleb Downs is not there, I would not scoff at Ruben Bain with that number 10 pick. I also want to touch on Kadyn McDonald as well, out of Ohio State. He's had a pretty solid season, really has kind of jumped up the draft boards, honestly. He wasn't necessarily a guy that going into the season didn't necessarily think he would be a first-round pick, but had a solid season here for the Buckeyes in 2025. This is what Mel Kiper in his big board had to say about Kadyn McDonald, saying the Big Ten Defensive Lineman of the Year has had a huge breakout season. Considering that he has had zero starts, 0 sacks, and just 24 tackles over the previous 2 seasons. McDonald has crushed all of those numbers over 13 starts this season. He is a force on the interior with incredible strength and weakness and quickness for a player his size, and McDonald is active and sniffs out the football to make plays. Now, I have also seen some stuff. Maybe he would be more a guy that kind of falls into, the back half of the first round. So maybe the Bengals end up trading back. We'll talk about that here in a little bit as well. And another guy that is very, very high on a lot of people's draft boards right now is Peter Woods out of Clemson. Now, look at that 2024 season. And, going here into 2025, I thought Peter Woods was just going to take another step up. It didn't necessarily happen this year for Peter Woods, and that is unfortunate because going into this 2025 season, I thought he could end up being a top 3 pick. But Peter Woods, I got to imagine, probably still going to be on the board when the Bengals pick there at number 10. So a couple options there if the Bengals do kind of, go towards the interior of the defensive line here at that number 10 spot. Those 3 guys are definitely going to be names to monitor. So who do you want the Bengals to pick in round 1? Is it Caleb Downs? Is it one of those other guys, Ruben Bain, Peter Woods that we just talked about? Maybe it's somebody else. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section of today's video. Now, I think also a big factor is what are the Bengals going to do here with Joseph Ossai? If the Bengals don't end up re-signing Joseph Ossai, maybe he wants a little bit more than the Bengals are willing to offer him this offseason, which I wouldn't really be surprised with. Hopefully, they can get him on a little bit of a cheaper deal. But if he ends up going to free agency, edge rusher could also be another possibility there. Now, I do really like what you saw from Myles Murphy in the back half of the season, and I guess we'll still see what happens here with Shamar Stewart, but still, even Seth Johnson showed some stuff as well. Could you get him a little bit cheaper as well? Maybe that's an option too, but if they don't sign Joseph Ossai, I do think the Bengals would end up going edge rusher, or at least have the possibility of going edge rusher in the first round here. David Bailey is a guy that has flown up the draft boards here this season. He has had just an incredible season, and really, over the past couple of years, he's just gotten better and better and better and better. And a guy with production in college. That's something that you definitely love to see there. 19 and a half tackles for loss this year, 14 and a half sacks. He gets to the quarterback. He lives in the backfield. I know Bengals fans, it would be a positive sight if the Bengals picked somebody who actually had a little bit of production here in college. But if you don't go David Bailey, there's another guy who has risen up the draft boards as well. Akeem Mesidor, the other side of that Miami defensive line, along with Ruben Bain. He's another guy that went crazy against Ohio State the other night. I think he had 3 sacks against Ohio State. He lived in the backfield, man. He definitely showed that he could be a first-round pick, especially against a very, very talented Ohio State team. And he's got the size as well that I think the Bengals really like. He's not a smaller edge rusher. He's big. He's strong. He can win at the point of attack. He can use that bull rush. He can run through guys, not just around guys. So Akeem Mesidor, another name to monitor here for the Bengals at that number 10 spot. So we talked about what would the Bengals possibly do? You think they're going to stay at that number 10 spot? Maybe they collect a little bit more draft picks, move back in the back. Maybe they think, hey, we think a team might pick the guy that we really, really want. We got to move up right here. So let me know what you guys think. Do the Bengals make any trades during the NFL draft? Type U if you think they end up trading up. Type D if you think they'll trade down. Or type S if you think they'll stay pat at that number 10 spot. Now, just a couple other guys that I wanted to throw in here. I think they could possibly fit some needs for the Bengals. Kadyn Proctor is a name out there, especially, talking about the offensive tackle spot. Do the Bengals end up, what do they do with Orlando Brown Jr.? If they let him go, they save a lot of money there. Do you end up drafting another offensive tackle coming off of 2 years with Amarius Mims? Just, be young along the offensive line there. Kadyn Proctor, Caleb Lomu out of Utah. Those are 2 names that I think you need to monitor there. What are they going to do with that cornerback spot? Are they going to try to, are they going to let Jalen Davis go and, pick somebody at that cornerback spot with a top 10 pick. Mansoor Delane, I've been very, very impressed with him. Colton Hood also had a very good season out of Tennessee as well. Brandon Cisse, I believe is how you pronounce his name there. I'm not quite sure yet. But man, all very, very good options there. Mansoor Delane's probably the only one I would pick in the top 10 there. C.J. Allen, are you going to go linebacker? Do they have confidence in those linebackers? Cashius Howell, another name to monitor at that edge rusher spot. And then T.J. Parker out of Clemson as well. A lot of different names, a lot of different options the Bengals could go with here. But still, I continue to say it. Go Caleb Downs at number 10 if he's on the board.